Welcome back. The fight for LGBT equality didn't end with the Supreme Court's decision on gay marriage. A new bill now being considered in Congress would grant sweeping federal protections. It would bar discrimination in areas like banking, education, employment, and housing, just to name a few. Joining me now to talk about the proposed law is David Kilmnick, CEO of the Long Island LGBT Network. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So now, New York has some of the strongest laws in the nation to protect gays and lesbians, but there are still 31 states that don't have any laws to protect people when it comes to discrimination against the LGBT community. How is that the case?
I think we're kind of in a fantasy world that we've had so many victories lately, particularly around marriage equality, that we forget that some of our basic protections from being fired from our jobs or thrown out of our houses, thrown out of our homes, is not protected in more than half of the states in the United States. I think it's also important to note that right here in New York, even though we have some of the strongest laws that protect the LGBT community, we still don't have laws that protect the transgender community. So the bill that we have in New York State that has never got out of the New York State Senate, and it's important to remember that the New York State Senate is controlled by our Long Island Republican delegation, is called the Gender Employment Non-Discrimination Act. So we still have a lot more work to do to ensure that every LGBT American is protected from just basic discrimination, from being fired from their job or kicked out of their homes.
Now, we know that President Obama would sign the Equality Act, but he'd sign it into law. But the votes, are they there? Will the Republican opposition in the House and Senate, will they be able to overcome, you think, and maybe sign this into law as well?
It's so hard to predict what this Congress is going to do. If we were thinking stereotypically, I guess, of what each party stands for, it would have no shot. But I think that, our country is, whether it's big corporations, whether it's states trying to pass laws to protect churches to be allowed to discriminate, I think our country is seeing that discrimination is bad business. It's not only wrong, morally wrong, but it's bad business. So, if Congress, whether it's in the House of Representatives or whether it's in the Senate, decides not to pass this bill, hopefully we'll see many of them voted out of office during the next cycle.
Okay. Now, we were talking a little bit earlier that the LGBT community has seen some successes as far as bills being passed. But have you noticed a shift in the tone maybe in Washington following the Supreme Court decision on gay marriage, in your opinion?
We've seen somewhat of a shift of tone here on Long Island, but when it comes down to Washington, D.C., we're still seeing the presidential candidates on the Republican side, most of them actually speaking up against the Supreme Court decision, some of them even favoring ignoring what the law of the land is. So, there is a shift that is moving toward, I think somewhat of like, let's move on, let's get over this. We have bigger issues to deal with, but there's still just way too many people. I think one person is way too many. But the field of candidates on the Republican side, which there are a lot, like almost 24, I would say, at least 2/3 of them are still making this an issue.
All right. So I want to switch gears just a little bit. What are your thoughts on the Boy Scouts ending its ban on gay scout leaders?
I think anytime we end discrimination against anyone in this country, it's a great day for America. So when the Boy Scouts ended discrimination, for the most part, against gay scout leaders, it was just a great day. Scouting is something that should be open to all for people to be whoever they are. And so for the first time in our history here in America, most gay people could be open and out and be scout leaders. Unfortunately, it didn't go far enough where it said that churches can choose, scout troops sponsored by churches could decide whether they want to have gay scout leaders or not. But I think what the Boy Scouts found out, which is what America's finding out all across the country, is that discrimination was bad business. The Boy Scouts membership was going down for so many years due to this controversy, I would say. And so those that choose not to be inclusive, I think, are going to be on their way out sooner than later.
All right. David Kilmnick, CEO of the Long Island LGBT Network, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this break.